Hi everyone, this is Dr. Ronnie de Souza Santos, and I'm here to present our paper named Practice to Improve Teamwork in Software Development During the COVID-19 Pandemic, an ethnographic study. So, as you all know, 2020 was an unusual year for software professionals. We have to abruptly shift into temporary home offices, which at the time was said to be temporary, but instead it felt like longer working from home in situations that we are not used to. So, for instance, what we can say is that working from home during the pandemic is not the same thing as working from home in normal conditions. But despite of all of the challenges, many professionals just grow used to the level of flexibility that this new arrangement of work was giving to them. But on the other hand, there was some I don't know, there are some kind of effects that were not expected at the time. For instance, effects on the way that the team interacts, the team dynamics. So, by experiencing this scenario, we raised the following research question: how did software professionals and software companies improve teamwork during the COVID-19 pandemic? This is our main research question, and I'm going to explain how we ran this study. We apply an ethnographic approach because we want to experience and we want to observe how software professionals were experiencing this process of working from home during a crisis, which is the pandemic at the time. So we apply some characteristics of ethnography, which is the application of the ethnographic methods within online communities, forums, and how people interact online. We also put together some elements of digital ethnography because the data collected in the study was not only based on observation, but we also had the opportunity to collect some material that are based on not just in messages, but also pictures, videos, even emoticons that they will bring something or represent how these professionals were facing this period. From the perspective of how we present the ethnography, we use the narrative, which is the process of taking notes of what was being observed and experienced, and telling the story from the point of view of professionals as well. But our study also gathered together some elements of the autoethnography, in particular because the first author of the study, me, was working in the company that we used to collect data at the time. And I had the opportunity to experience everything that the professionals were also experiencing. So it's very difficult to separate uh, the author, the researcher, from the environment, the context, and the people that are being studied. This is the characteristic of the ethnography, and we couldn't just let it out of our study. Uh, we also use some participant observation, which means that not only experience what was happening in the scenario, but we also had the opportunity to look closely to how people were facing uh, the scenario, how people were facing and experiencing what was going on regarding team dynamics and how the team was working during the remote work and even some hybrid work during the period of crisis. Here are some contextual information about the environment where the study was taken. Um, we carried this study in a company that had over 1,000 employees directly affected by the pandemic. From these employees, over 70% of the professionals were working directly into software development activities, which means that they were programmers or software QAs or designers, managers, software managers, and stuff. The company has over 50 projects running at the same time. So you can imagine how how having everybody working from home suddenly have affected many people, not just the employees, not just the software professionals, but also the clients, also the users. And that was something that we could experience and observe closely at the time that the pandemic started. The company has worldwide clients, which means that the professionals are used to well known software processes and practices. And there is a variety of software development methods being used in this company, such as agile methods or traditional waterfall methods and so on. So if you look to this picture right now, you can see an image that can that kind of illustrates the process of moving all the people from the company to work from home. So early in March, when the pandemic started and hit the country that the company is, they created a committee to start strategizing how what kind of measures the company would take. Some professionals start working from home starting on March 12th. Then from March 16th to 19th, everybody start to move working from home, even though many of these professionals had no preparedness or no office waiting for them to start continue developing their activities. From March 20th, on, all of the professionals were already working from home, and we get to observe and to experience this process and everything related to this scenario from March 20th to September 2021. So we collected data from a total of 1 year and 6 months. Our data was collected mainly through observations. We observed the main meetings of two specific projects. So, daily meetings, planning, retrospective, and so on. We were observing how the team was interacting during these meetings and everything that they were facing while working from home. We had access to some asynchronous messages and also synchronous messages while the projects were running. And at the end, we ran a questionnaire with open questions asking the professionals about the practices that we observed. We could observe a total of three practices that were created to improve software professional involvement in the team and engagement of professionals in the team. And we observed these practices to the data collected from observation and analysis of synchronous and asynchronous messages. But at the end, we also asked these professionals about those practices. As for data analysis, we as most of the data that we collected were qualitative data, either from field notes and also by converting images, video conferences, and emoticons and so on into textual data. We used qualitative analysis. So we coded this data and we linked this data and we used this data to describe the practices that we observed. While we were describing these practices and how they emerged and what are the motivation behind these practices, we started to realize that they were close related to some aspects of gamification, which means it's very important to state here that these practices they were not originally thought to be related to gamification. However, once they were created, we observed that there were some kind of aspects of games that um, that was taking these practices forward. So let's see these practices now. So our observations revealed at least three practices created by the team to improve their involvement and the engagement during the work from home in this period of crisis. It's very important to state in here that one of the main challenges of the teams that we observed was the fact that the team configuration changed a lot during this period. So you had several people coming to the team, like new individuals. We have people that left. The team was split in two, and two different projects. Before it was one team, but then it became two team that share some professionals. So they had to come up with ideas to keep the team ongoing and to make sure that they still feel as a team, that they were not just a group of people working on something, that they still have the same goal, that they still trust each other as a team. So the first practice that we observed was what they call the costume meeting. So during this practice was created to bring people together and to introduce to others some other aspects of your life. So, for instance, one day a week, the team would attend the daily wearing some kind of costume or some kind of prop, anything that could tell the other something about you, like a movie that you like or what kind of music you like. This is a was a great opportunity for people to know the individuals behind the professionals. So uh, that guy, that person, was not just the programmer in my team anymore. There was someone else in there that likes this kind of music or this kind of food and etc. So at some point we start to increase involvement. There was another practice created by the team that they called the second language day, and this was a practice to improve uh, knowledge sharing regarding the client. This team has a client that speak another language from the mother language of the team. So they created this practice in a way that they could learn to each other about the second language. In this case, it was English. Okay, so the idea in here was that during that day, the whole team would only speak the second language. If anyone speak a different language, so the team would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we do not speak that language. We only speak this particular language." Um, the third practice was called the project happy hour. So, in this process, the team would end the day by opening the cameras, and everybody would get together to grab a drink and to chat and to talk about anything but the project, anything but the thing that they were working with. So that was another way to increase the bonding among the professionals. So if you look at these practices the way they are, it's like they are simple. They are simple practices, right? But if you look close, you see that they have some gamification elements attached to them. For instance, costume meeting. They bring to the team factors elements related to novelty and to sensation because every week everybody has this expectation of seeing something new, something different related to those that are working with them. As for the second language day, we could observe two elements of gamification. The first one was cooperation, because the whole team would cooperate, would work together towards improving everybody's second language skills. And also, we had the social pressure element of the game, because in this case, the individuals, they would not respond to those who are not speaking the second language. I mean, not in a bad way, but in a funny way to make everybody wants to practice at the same time, you know? And finally, at the project happy hour practice, we had the elements of storytelling, because in this practice, the team will always pretend that they were somewhere else, like a cafe or a pub or I don't know, even sometimes a casino or a club, you know. So they will pretend that they were someone else. They will pretend that they were living a life outside of the everything that the pandemic created, and this way they will increase the bonding. Okay, all of these three practices and these gamification elements, we observed that they could increase engagement and involvement. These practices, they are associated to the scenario of working from home, most of them just working from home during a crisis, and some of them are not useful for instance, working in the office. In particular, second language day. The people need to speak loud and speak in another language, and it might not be suitable for an office because you might, I don't know, bother people that are working right beside you in another project in another team. But it's very important that these practices that they can be very well applied and used in remote working scenarios. Okay, this is a working in progress. We are still working on the effects of the pandemic on software development, in particular because we want to understand how software industry can be prepared for future crises. But based on these results, we already have some practices that can be used towards increasing involvement and engagement of software professionals and to turn better the dynamics of software teams. You know, we know that we cannot afford to have software teams um, disrupting because the response for crisis and what our society depends right now, it's supported by software and technologies. So we need these kind of strategies that will keep software teams working no matter what are the conditions. So we are studying this. This is a working in progress. We want to know more about what the we learned from this crisis, from this pandemic, and how we can use this to improve software work in software industry. Um, Thank you very much. If you have any questions or any comments on this research, please contact me or Professor uh, Paul Ralph, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.